Hello, I'm Piers Lane. I'm the Artistic Director and the non-voting Chair of the Jury of the Sydney International Piano Competition. And now it's my great pleasure to talk with one of the eminent jurors, Alexander Gavrylyuk.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to be here.
Sasha, it's wonderful to have you here
Thank
too.
you.
And I think I'd like to know more about Sasha's life because we're both Australians, but he's had a very extraordinary life really for somebody still under the age of 40. And I think it'll be great to hear him tell his life from the very beginning, because I know he started the piano early and then his life took an extraordinary turn, or several extraordinary turns. No?
Well, yes, I think there's such a thing as once you start moving, you can never stop. You
Right.
move to another country and you think, well, I've been here for too long, so time for another move. Well, so yes, I ended up moving from Ukraine at the age of 13 to Australia. I had a scholarship here to study, first at St. Andrew's Cathedral School, which is just around the corner here.
In Sydney?
In Sydney, and later the Institute of Music in Sydney.
And before you left Ukraine, what had been happening to you?
Well, my parents thought singing in the choir would be a good idea for me at first. So the special music school in Kharkiv in Ukraine was where I ended up at the age of 7, singing in the choir and simultaneously starting my piano lessons as well. And somehow piano took over after a couple of years.
Did you have a wonderful teacher, or just your talent was emerging?
Well, the whole system there was very Soviet orientated at the time. It was back so many years, I don't even know how many at this stage, but the practicing structure was very tough for someone who is 7 and 8 years old. So you were kind of expected to straight away be very serious with your approach and very dedicated and disciplined.
How many were in the same boat as you?
I guess all the students had similar requirements.
And were there half a dozen or 2 dozen? Or?
I would say yes, maybe 20 or so.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of practice going on.
A lot of music, a lot of piano sounds around. And I started concertizing from the age of 9, actually.
Wow.
First concert.
Can you remember what you played?
Bach Concerto in F minor was the first concert in Ivano-Frankivsk in the West Ukraine. And I still remember how I got a box of toy cars as my concert fee. And it was the best feeling in the world. Oh, this piano playing business is not so bad after all, So that was nice.
I'm sure it could be organized. I'm sure promoters would like to give you a box of cars instead of your present fee.
Yes. Yeah, but it was a nice introduction to the stage, playing with an orchestra and feeling this incredible sort of new collaborative kind of joy. It was really nice.
And wonderful to have that experience as something natural to do already at the age of 9, considering your later life. I think some of the competitors we hear possibly have not played a concerto before at quite an advanced age, and it's more forbidding to do it later on if it's part of your growing up.
That's right.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I think it kind of opens you up to the idea that you're not alone, because pianists, we're always in a practice room by ourselves, and I think it's so nice to play chamber music, so nice to play with an orchestra if you can, just to experience the exchange of energy, the exchange of thoughts and feelings, and it makes for a lot of inspiration.
Sure. Yeah. And so from the age of 9, you had 4 years before you left your home country.
Right, yes.
What happened in those years? Just more of the same?
More of the same, just really busy practice hours every day. I will never forget my finals at the Horowitz competition when I was 11 or 12. And I practiced the whole night before the finals, playing Mozart concerto.
Honestly.
Yeah, and then I had a memory lapse in the first moment.
You're too tired.
Too tired.
Oh, dear.
And we stopped, and the whole orchestra stopped for a moment. It was a moment of those, nightmares that we all have.
Yes.
And and I managed to remember where I went wrong, and the orchestra picked up, and the conductor had no choice but to go along.
And the Horowitz competition, I just judged that actually a few months ago in Geneva this year. And was it originally for younger people, or were you just extraordinary at the age of 11?
They had age categories.
I see.
They had, I think, 3 age categories at the time.
Right.
I don't know how it's structured these days, but
Yes.
yeah, I've competed twice. So that time I got a second prize, the next time a first, and this was a nice introduction to the international experience, because since then I took some trips to the US and some European trips, which suddenly opened a whole new world to me at that stage.
Yes, I think it's very important that people go into smaller international competitions, just feel out that huge stamina necessary and pacing yourselves and getting the repertoire.
Yeah.
It's wonderful in Australia that many of the Australians who've got into the Sydney International Piano Competition the last few years, including this year, have been people who've won the Lev Vlasenko competition in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And that was started by Natasha Vlasenko and her husband Oleg Stepanov. And of course, Natasha's father was one of the great professors of the Moscow Conservatoire. And it was actually his idea that Australians should have such a competition to prepare them for the international
fantastic idea
stage.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
it obviously is working.
Yeah, indeed. Exactly.
So you're 13 and you were separated from your family more or less?
Yes, I got a scholarship offer from Sydney at the time, and so I moved together with a bunch of students and a piano teacher. Lived all together until the age of 18.
How did that feel?
Felt oh gosh, no, all the memories come back.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the other side of the world. It must have seemed like Mars to a little boy from Ukraine, you know.
Yeah, a combination of terror, excitement, curiosity.
Did you speak English at that stage?
I did not. I came here and started my ESL language at the school, at the St. Andrews School. Which was exciting. I got some friends here, a cellist and a violinist, Daniel and Tracy, and we started playing together, and therefore we started chatting, and so my English started developing at that age, which was nice. And I mean, coming from Ukraine to Australia was like coming to another planet. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, what an amazing place! What an amazing impression it gave me straight away.
Did you stop practicing quite as much?
I did. I thought, oh, wait a minute. There's another way. There's another way. No, it was a wonderful realization after some time of spending in Sydney of the inner freedom and the freedom of individuality, freedom of choice, freedom of expression. All those things came into full gloom here somehow, you know.
Full gloom or full bloom?
Full bloom, sorry, the gloom. That's a bloom, yes. Well. And and I think that played a really important role for my forming as a pianist, as a musician. So, you know,
it's impossible to know, but presumably you are a different musician than you would have been had you stayed.
I'm sure.
In Ukraine. It's impossible to know. But so here, how did you progress? When did you? Because you won some big competitions quite early on.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I think it gave me the experience, mental and psychological experience that I needed to form a relationship with concert stage. You know, I think it was important to, from the early age, I went to the Hamamatsu competition at 16. I was the youngest competitor there.
Yeah.
And that was a very useful and very, you know, fulfilling experience because it exposed me to a big stage and a big repertoire, big programs, and was followed by this insane Japanese tour where there was 27 concerts in a matter of 31 days. For 16 or 17.
Probably just as well you were only 16.
Right. And so that was quite something, you know, but it was really a sort of, it gave me maybe a thicker skin or so. In terms of the
and presumably also laid the foundation for a big career in Japan later. You made contacts early on. They knew your name early on.
Yeah, that's right.
It's amazing. That's one of the great advantages of getting a major prize, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. And so that was the beginning of a very, very nice and warm relationship with Japan, which continues to this day.
Then you were living still in Sydney at that stage.
Right. Yeah. And
you had some ghastly accident at some stage, which I'm sure you don't want to really relive, but I mean, it was formative as well.
That's right. There were a couple of things that were life-changing actually here. One of them was a car accident which nearly took my life, and at the mercy of an amazing surgeon, Erika Jacobson, I was saved. And so the miracle was that there was no brain damage, because I basically broke half of my skull.
Oof.
And the doctors, I was in coma and so on, and so the doctors didn't have much optimism in terms of my full recovery, which I did have,
Yes.
after all.
You obviously had a very thick skull.
Maybe it's that thick skin experience early on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm extremely grateful to have been given the second chance, of course, and that intensified my feeling of responsibility towards music making.
Right.
Of course, so I thought, why? And obviously...
It's a very young age to have to think about those things.
Yeah.
What am I doing this for? What do I want to do with my life?
Exactly. I was 17 at the time. And so I thought, wait a minute. So that means I have some kind of responsibility. Why am I given the second chance? So, so music was an obvious thing, the elephant in the room. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a nice kind of beginning of a relationship where music was not just about expressing myself, but about a larger picture. And so reading a few books like the one by Stanislavski about my path in art changed and helped me form that relationship further, because it became much less self-centered and became much more about the idea of music being one of the best tools we have as humanity to unite ourselves.
Absolutely.
To have that same piece of music, whether it is a nocturne by Chopin or a prelude by Rachmaninoff, present the opportunity for people to feel things in such a similar way,
Yes.
disregarding the immediate differences on the surface, whether they're cultural, religious or any other. And so that
And
was
I think too, in modern life, in the old days, religion was a very big part of people's lives, going to church and that sort of thing, which doesn't happen now. I think people get that feeling of unification at football matches,
Right.
in
Yeah.
discos and so
Yeah.
on. But music is one of the most supreme
absolutely
unifiers, isn't
absolutely.
it? Bringing us together.
In a way, a best diplomacy tool we have.
Yes.
Something that's it is able to achieve what politicians struggle with
Yes.
achieving. So, yeah.
Yes, and I wish they would help us more realise that we have something that we can help them with. But
Exactly.
And so after that was 17. Where did you go from there?
Well, next step for me was the Rubinstein competition, and well, at that stage I already had quite a schedule already with concerts in Europe and US and in Japan, Korea, and so it was a further step, and it was a really, really nice, gratifying experience in Israel, and that exposed me to some incredible musicians, including Nikolai Petrov at the time, who was in the jury. And so he invited me further to Moscow at the time, and I started this relationship with the stage there as well. This was when the world was a better place,
Yes.
of course, back in the day, which is different now. But back then it was very special to me, because I gained a lot from the cultural experience from the lessons I had at the time and so on. So it was the next kind of stage, moving from Australia to Europe.
Yeah.
I met the love of my life, Zoki. My fiance at the time, we moved from here to Moscow, stayed there for 7 months, before moving to Berlin. And living there for 8 years, and then further moving to the Netherlands and living there for 5 years.
Yes, and the Netherlands was more or less, well, not long before COVID.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, these great centres
That's
for music in so many ways. Berlin is such a melting pot as well.
Melting pot of culture. I mean, it has an amazing cultural scene there. All the concerts, all the opera, and
Yes.
it was very special being there. And then at the time, I already started playing quite a lot in all the European destinations.
Well, I remember arriving home from a trip somewhere that I'd been doing and turning on the television, and there you were doing your famous now Rachmaninoff 3 at the Proms.
Yes,
and
right.
it was such an extraordinarily revelatory performance.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Very, very dear, very, very, humbling kind of experience. being there, and of course the Concertgebouw Orchestra with whom we played so many times, and it was sort of this incredible immersion of influences that just lifted you up and just carried you further and further. And then COVID happened.
Yes, and so how has COVID changed your life? Because you have two children.
Yes, we have two girls, 8 and 11 now, Anna and Olivia, and COVID gave an opportunity to spend family time at home.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was the first time in my life I'd spent over a year in my own home.
Right,
Look,
same.
I got the best tan I'd ever had in my life because we had great weather in England, and I sat outside for breakfast and dinner and worked in the garden.
Wasn't that nice?
Went for walks. I mean, heard birdsong in London. It was amazing. Things that hadn't ever happened, and presumably it was the same for you.
Same for us. We were still in the Netherlands in this beautiful place called Laren. And it's a stunning little charming village where many painters used to live and work. And spending the COVID isolation times there was a real bliss, to be honest.
Yes.
It was nice to be with the girls, with Zoki.
And to not feel that you had to practice for something tomorrow and something in 3 weeks and sometime in 3 months. You could take time out.
You could take time and not feel pressed with the schedule or anything like this. It was really quite unique, actually.
Yes.
Maybe for the first time there was a feeling of just having been in the moment, in the now.
Yes.
That was really, really quite special, actually.
And it's led to you coming back to live in Sydney.
Yeah.
Which is a major thing for an international pianist like you. It's expensive for promoters to fly you from here. It's exhausting for you to fly to Europe regularly and to America and so on. So you've been here now for over a year.
That's right.
Permanently. And how are you finding it?
Well, it has many very, very nice sides, this decision. And, one of them, of course, are the children. Zoki has her family here, her parents and her further family, so she has a strong support network for the children and her own work as well.
Yes.
And the flying is not so bad. I mean,
in a way, it's nice to tuck yourself away and you can't be got at.
Right. It's not as easy to kind of get yourself. Exactly. And it's all right. I mean, the flight times are longer, but we try to group the concerts together in one region of the world and just kind of go there and spend a month or a bit longer, and then have another region for another month and so on. So we just kind of plan it this way.
Yeah. Well,
Sydney loves Sydney. We missed, both of us missed it.
Yes.
And I, so it's amazing to be back.
Well, I think the whole of Australia is very glad you're back. But anyway, thanks so much for sharing your life. It's
Thank you so
as
much.
I said at the beginning, rather an extraordinary life for somebody who's not even 40 yet. Thanks, Sasha.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure.